Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. Welcome to Tea with Sue. Today, I have a question for you. Well, I always have questions for you because I always have questions for me. My question today is, who are you in relationship? Now, there are certainly many directions we could go with that. We could go in relation to the weather, in relation to your job, in relation to other people, in relation to yourself. And it all would apply. So what I want to focus on today is that whole dynamic of relationships, to see how it impacts us, to explore a little bit what it's all about. Now, I certainly think that relationships are probably as complex as the pattern in the top I'm wearing today, maybe even infinitely more complex than that. So it's fascinating to me to begin to unravel all of that, to explore facets of relationships, because when I do that personally, I know I grow. I'm endlessly curious about what makes people tick. And of course, I can't help but reflect, well, is that what makes me tick? And when I see the differences, when I see the contrast in my world that's maybe different than who I think I am or where I'm coming from, it enables me to dive a little bit deeper into that exploration. So that's where we're at today. Now, many years ago, when I was very unaware of who I was as a person, I'd been brought up to serve, to look after others. And so that was who I thought I was, somebody who served and looked after others. Well, I had this wonderful opportunity to dive into if that was really all there was, or was there more? And much to my delight and surprise, I discovered, whoa, I was way more than that. And when it came to self-concept, self-image, how I saw myself, I was working with a group of spiritual advisors, and they gave me this visual in relation to how I saw myself. And they said, Sue, imagine that you are this huge, shining white wall. In fact, it's shining so bright, you almost need sunglasses to look at it. So this is you, this shining white wall. And just off to the right, there's a black thumbprint. And that thumbprint is the sum total of all of the things that you don't like about yourself, the failings, the shortcomings, the judgments you have about how you look, how you act, how you feel, how you think, how you talk. All of those things is that thumbprint. And they went on to tell me that what I was focusing on was this black thumbprint. That's how I saw myself, as this almost a vast self-improvement project that never quite measured up, that never quite got to where I wanted to go, because there were all of these things in this thumbprint that seemed so big. And they said, and here you are, this shining white wall. So we want you to concentrate on the wall, not the thumbprint. And of course, if you walk into a room where there's a white wall and there's a smudge on the paint, that's exactly where your eyes go. And it's hard to shift your focus. So it was hard for me to shift my focus to, well, what if I'm all of this? What am I if I'm all of this magnificent white wall, and this little bit over here, well, it doesn't need to play such a big role, but it did for lots of years, until I began to kind of poke at it and pick at the black paint and peel away some layers. And in doing that, I began to discover, whoa, I am more of this white wall. Look at all of this. So, and of course, the black thumbprint colored the way that I interacted with my world. And it wasn't in a good way for a large part of it, because I found myself, because I judged myself so harshly, I found me judging others harshly. Well, I don't like the way they do that. And oh, why would they be that way? And condemning them for the way they were being. And where did it come from? Well, it came from my self-condemnation. It came exactly from there. So who we are in relationship to anyone else in the world, or to whatever's going on the planet, is really a reflection or a mirror of what's going on inside ourselves. When I see people having angry thoughts or fearful thoughts or actions that I don't think are going to get them where they want to go, well, if I'm hanging out in judgment about that, chances are excellent that I also have that in me. I may not act on it, but in The Way of Mastery, one of the books that I've been reading, the question is, have you ever had a murderous thought? Well, I'd like to say no, but in all honesty, I can't. There are times when I have been raging inside myself to the point where I just felt murderous, and I never acted on it. But I could see how knowing that level in me could easily happen to someone else. And there's that old phrase there, but for the grace of God go I. Well, it happens for other people, and it can happen in like a nanosecond. I remember visiting, I was in my teens, and we were part of a group that was visiting a prison here in Alberta as a kind of an educational thing to look at social justice and so on. And the inmates that we were looked after by, the ones that were kind of giving us the tour and sharing information and so on, they were all considered lifers. So they were there for the rest of their lives. And largely because they had committed really heinous crimes, murder and so on. And interestingly enough, when we did the debriefing with our guide at the time, he said to us that so many of these crimes, these murderous crimes, were crimes of passion. They weren't premeditated. They weren't thought out ahead of time. It was just in that one instant that this happened. And my heart went out to all of these inmates, because this was a male prison. So my heart went out to all these men, because it could happen to any of us in that split second of overwhelm or being swamped by emotion that we didn't know how to deal with, or circumstances that seem pretty dire or whatever. And we do something, that we act on what's going on inside, and then afterwards often have extreme regret about that. So when I went through that, even as I think, I was in my teens, and it impacted me in a big way, because I realized, well, I've been mad like that. I've had those things. Well, do we condemn ourselves for the thoughts? No, the thoughts and the feelings come. They're there. It's information. And it's what we do with the information that determines how we're going to carry on. Because none of the thoughts and feelings that any of us have make us bad people or saintly or whatever. They just are, they exist. But it's the actions and the consequences of those actions that show us loud and clear, okay, that was not a good thing. That didn't turn out the way I had hoped or the way I thought it would. And as a result, I'm in this mess over here. So the suspension of judgment in all of this, and I've talked about this before, and I keep coming back to judgment because it plays such a crucial role in how we live our lives and whether we thrive or whether we struggle and suffer. So if you look at the difference between judgment and discernment. So if we take contrast, something that's very different from who we are, and we say, whoa, I don't think I want that. Well, we have some evidence perhaps leading up to that would say, okay, let's take stealing as an example. So I can remember when I was really little, and not that little, I was old enough to go to the store for my mother and get some stuff. And so here's my confession. I don't think I've ever told this out loud on camera before, but here's my confession. So she gives me money. My mom gives me her purse to go to the store and get certain things. And so, and I'm not to get anything else, right? I'm only to spend the money on what she told me. So I go there, and then of course I go into the drugstore and I look longingly along the sweets counter, and I was really wanting something sweet, but I knew I would be in big trouble if I spent money on sweets when I was told to only spend it on this. So I stole this roll of candies and left the store. Well, I'm like, I don't know, 5 or something. Well, of course I got caught. And this clerk grabbed me by the hand and she gave me holy hell for what I had just done, and marched me back to the counter and made me pay for this candy. Well, I was just sick. I walk out of the store and I'm just shaking because this is now a traumatic experience for me. And I knew better. I mean, I had been taught the difference between right and wrong, and I knew better that this was not good to do this, but I did it anyway. And well, of course, that candy didn't taste good. And I think I remember I ate 2 or 3 on my way home, and then I stuffed the rest of them down inside a fence post area and then went home. Well, for days afterwards, and of course I was terrified that my mother might find out about this. Well, if she ever did, it never came up again, but lesson learned, right? So I knew, and really I bless the fact that I learned that young, because it taught me such a vital lesson about, look, the way I felt from doing that was so big, especially for a 5-year-old, that I made a vow at that point. Okay, I'm never, ever, ever doing anything like that again. So, but that's what happens, right? Now, there could have been, and of course I beat myself up internally at the time. You know, you knew better, and the punishing parent came out big time. So nobody else had to punish me, let me tell you, because I punished myself plenty for that. Well, I think sometimes over the course of our lifetimes we do that. We hang out in self-punishment and deny ourselves pleasure because of past, what we consider to be wrongdoings, past failures, past, oh, well, I did that, and so I can never do that again because, or I can never go there because I embarrassed myself so badly, or whatever. And we don't let it go. It instead of it being an event that happened, you know, maybe split second, we hang on to it as a story and drag it around with us like the old ball and chain, as if it's who we are, as if it defined us. Well, maybe it was a defining moment, but you still get to choose again. You still get to say, okay, lesson learned. Now let's move on from that. So if you see somebody else stealing, for example, well, you don't know what their journey's been, and why would you judge that? You can reflect about, oh yeah, I did that and it hurt really badly. So I hope that this lesson, that the lesson will come to them to help them so they don't need to do that. But I don't know what anybody else's journey is all about. So judging them is not really appropriate in this situation. So it all comes back to the contrast. And I mean, when we come in as spiritual beings, here we are, these magnificent shining walls, right? And then life has a way of delivering us experiences that might cause that thumbprint to go up on the wall and get a little darker and a little darker and a little darker and a little darker. And maybe in our minds, that thumbprint becomes overwhelming and overshadows this white, shining existence as who we really are. So I think one of the strategies that I've used, and I'm not sure it was a conscious thing, but I began unraveling some of these stories and asking the very pertinent question, is that true? So when I had a failure, and I've had lots of failures in my life, when I had a failure, my initial tendency was to say, I'm the failure. Because I failed, I'm the failure. Well, if I ask myself, is that true? Because I failed at that, does that make me a failure? Well, no, because I've had successes in a variety of other parts of my life, and there was probably a very good reason that I failed. So when I think about the very first business I ever started, I was probably 24, 25. I had a ton of enthusiasm, what I thought was a great business idea, but I knew nothing. And there was nobody to kind of coach me and show me the ropes in those days. So a year and a half into the business, we're out of business because we were undercapitalized and there was all these things. And then going, it was a big failure in my life. Fortunately, I don't think I took it in as thinking that I was a failure. I just realized, oh, well, there's more to learn here. Well, there were some things I didn't know. So next time I'll learn different, I'll learn more things and hopefully avoid all of those mistakes I made in the first get-go. But there are people that I know that did a similar thing, started a business, failed miserably, and then said, I'm never doing that again. I'm a terrible failure because I couldn't make a go of it. And so we do this to ourselves when we look at, we're big in society on comparing our income levels to other people. And there's the whole gamut, right? From people who are homeless on the streets with hardly a penny to their names, right through to trillionaires who have so much money, it's hardly even countable, and everything in between. Well, because we have had such a huge focus on, he who has the gold makes the rules, then when we don't feel we have enough gold, then we feel less than, we feel helpless, we feel powerless, all of those attendant feelings. But money is just energy, but it's our relationship to that energy that can play out to either cause us great suffering in our lives or turn the tides and say, well, it's energy and it's like the tides. The tide comes in and the tide goes out. So there's this ebb and this flow of money. And just like energy, there's this ebb and this flow. Well, when we can change our minds about how we view it and what our relationship is to it, then we have a chance to move forward in a healthier way. So, and where do our notions about that all come from? Well, they come from childhood predominantly, that we learn at our parents' knees or our grandparents' knees or somebody's knees what it is about money. And one person might be very much a saver, and so we learn the value of saving money. And another person might just say, there's more where that comes from, and they're very carefree and don't look to tomorrow to make sure they have a little nest egg, and all of the bits and pieces. And some of what I grew up with, money is the root of all evil. So you don't want to have too much money, because then people will look at you funny. Maybe your friends will not be your friends anymore. And so in the whole unraveling, I had an interesting challenge, and still do to a certain extent, to come to terms with my relationship with money, which is essentially my relationship with me. Like, do I see myself as having enough power to make all the money I want to make or not? And if I don't, and I really want that, then what am I going to do about it? What is it that I can reframe or change or whatever that will get me to cross over from wherever I'm here, where I'm often stuck, to this place over here? So it's about change. It's about exploring and examining our relationships with everything, with ourselves and whatever else is coming into our lives, to come to a conclusion about that, to understand it, explore it, and say, well, is that really true for me, or is that working for me? And if it's not working for me, well, how do I want to change that? How do I want to shift that? Because we all have the power to make whatever changes we want to make. Even if it feels like we're powerless, we can. We can make that shift. If we made a shift in any other way, we can do it in everything that we focus on. So that's an important facet of looking at how our world can change, because our world is the one that, I live in my own world as you live in your own world. And if I'm not really happy with what's going on in my day-to-day world, I'm the only one who can change that. I'm the only one who can make that discernment and say, well, yes, this, not that. And that just brings you right back to the judgment thing. The difference between discernment and judgment is, discernment is looking at things from the viewpoint of I like that, or I don't like that. That works for me. That doesn't work for me. That fits. That doesn't fit. All those kinds of things, where we're looking at something and then trying it on. I don't like the taste of oranges, and so I know they're good for me, but I don't like the taste, so I'm not having an orange. I'll have maybe a banana instead. It's not that the orange is bad. It's just, well, it's not my preference. It doesn't work for me. And whereas judgment is, I don't like it, therefore it's bad. So we come to a conclusion. We make up a story about that. I can give you a dating example for that looks at how we make up stories. So when I did online dating a number of years ago, and I'm connecting with someone that I think is kind of cool and I'd like to connect more with, and I'm expecting a phone call because we'd initiated contact, and there was some back and forth, and then there was a long pause, and this other person is not getting in touch with me, and I'm going, whoa, So then the story starts, right? Did I do something wrong? Did I turn them off? Was it something I said? Was it something I didn't do? Should I call? Are they not interested anymore? Or they're probably not interested in me anymore. Oh, you know, they probably think I'm this or that, and they probably think I'm this or that, and they probably think I'm this or that. And so then this whole story builds up. And then the person calls, and I discover that they had to go out of town for a week, and that's why they didn't call. So I had to make a huge shift in my mind to not go down that path, not create this big story based on very little evidence, very little information. The only thing I knew for sure that was true was they hadn't called me for however many days. That's all I knew. And so, but to build that up in my mind is, oh, they're probably not interested. And then of course I'd move into, wow, you know, that's not right. They're not treating me right. And I'm all fussed about this, only to discover that I'd been thinking bad thoughts about them on the evidence that, well, they hadn't called, instead of cutting them some slack and saying, well, I don't know why they're calling. I literally don't know why they're not calling. It could be a variety of reasons. It could be that all of a sudden they had lots of work they needed to get done. It could be that they were called out of town. I mean, it's a variety of things, and none of it has to be about me. And as it turned out, it was nothing about me. It was about what was going on in their lives. So I think so quickly I know I fall into that pattern. Maybe you don't. I hope you don't. But I think you know what I'm talking about here. We're more magnificent than that. We deserve to have a better experience than that. And we're the only ones that can give it to ourselves. So this week, I'd love you to take a look at relationships. I'd love you to explore who you are in relation to anything that's out there. And of course, the whatever's out there that's bugging you the most, that's giving you the most grief right now, probably is the one to take a look at first, because there can be some real gems in there as you think about, I wonder why this is bothering me so much. What is it about that, or that person, or that situation that really just sticks in my craw? And I'm feeling, you know, and it feels bad and wrong, and I'm judging it, and all of that. And explore that a little bit and say, well, you might be surprised at the revelations that come when you do that, because it's often, Greg Braden in his work he talks about the 7 Essene mirrors that reflect back to us who we are and what's going on with us. And I found that hugely important to really get a sense of, if I want to grow into my own magnificence, and I keep growing, am I there? Do I have this, you know, 24/7 notion of, oh, here's me magnificent? Well, I'm in the same boat you're in, right? I might have a little glimmer once in a while because I'm focusing on it more than I ever did in the rest of my life. But I think maybe the day that I transition back to spirit, that's the day that full-blown magnificence will come back to me, and oh yeah, of course, and I'll laugh and I'll laugh and I'll laugh. In the meantime, I still find a number of areas, which is why I'm talking to you, because maybe you're struggling the same. Maybe you want more, because you certainly deserve more, just as I deserve more. And the only one that can give it to us is us. You know, we're the ones. We get all the goodies when things fall into place, and we get the lessons when things don't. And we're the only ones that can alter that in any way. So I really want to encourage you to take a look at that, because relationships are really what we're all about. And we're here to explore that and discover that and grow as a result of that. Enough for today. So I encourage you, if you're enjoying Tea with Sue, to check out the other videos. This is session number 89, I think, in the Tea with Sue series. I've been having such fun doing them. You can also catch up with all the other videos I've done. I have Magnificence Moments on my app, The Magnificence Mentor, which is a free download. All you need to do is go to Google Play or Apple Store and download the app. And when you become a free member, you get access to all the content, Magnificence Moments, Frivolicious Fridays, all the articles that are on there, and of course, all my Tea with Sue. Take good care, my dear magnificent ones. We'll see you next week on Tea with Sue.